Good evening and welcome to the show. Today we are going to once again discuss President Trump's visit to China and the Trump and Xi meeting for the last 2 days. And today the President of United States of America departed from China. There were three main issues. In fact, there was a bilateral framework that China and the Americans have been talking about. Second was peace and security in the region, especially focusing on Taiwan. And the third was the global issues, the globalization and global stability. So this was the entire agenda that the most powerful nations of the world, their leaders discussed in last couple of days in China. I have a very important and senior journalist with me, Javed Rana, who has been contributing to the local as well as the international media. Still, he contributes to the international media, and he has a focus on the regional as well as the global politics. Thank you very much, Mr. Javed, for joining me. Please kindly give me your take and your idea regarding the fundamentals of this meeting, which has been, long waited.
I think this meeting was initially delayed for probably for 4 weeks, and the reason was that the Donald Trump didn't want to be seen going to China in a situation when he was having tough time from the Iranian in the Middle East, and now he delayed it, and then now since there is a ceasefire, and he's been saying that yes, the Iranian issue is going to be taken up, but we don't need China's help to bring an end to this war permanently. I think the situation perhaps was the other way around. That was a part of the reason that he delayed it, and then later on, when he has gone there, I don't think he has got anything on the Iranian issue. They have made predictably a statement, the Chinese president saying that he wants opening up of the Strait of the Hormuz, and that's it. But I think I have not ever seen and heard that any head of state, and particularly the one of the great power, I don't call it Americans as a superpower, going to another great power, and the another great power's president, in a very subtle manner, humiliating him, telling him that if you try to play with us on Taiwan, and that would means a conflict. This is the most harsh statement ever made by the current Chinese president against the US anytime during last 10-15 years. And I think that is a clear message to the Americans, because right now, as we speak, a proposal is underway which involves from 14 to 25 billion US dollars of new latest weapons, sophisticated weapons to the Taiwan from the USA. So again, in that context, I think that is a very important, and the president told him that the Taiwan is the most important, and anything happening on this issue can disrupt our relationship, and we can go to essentially a conflict, which means a war. So let me.
Do you think that the same question was asked to the President Trump while he was traveling back to states? On the boat, one of the journalists asked him that was there any talk about the sale of arms to the Taiwan? So he didn't clearly answer it, but he said that there was mention. It means that the Chinese might have mentioned it, that the Americans should stop selling arms, as you were referring. Do you think that the Americans in future, maybe not right now, but in
I think
considering this proposal from the Chinese?
I think what Chinese media has done, I think it was a pre-planned. Chinese media highlighted those particular remarks on conflict and something Donald Trump tried to play down, and he did not specifically speak on this particular issue. Now the question is, under Donald Trump, I think now it looks like very difficult for the White House to approve this sale to the Taiwan, because Chinese president has clearly warned, has clearly threatened Americans not only with a war, but also essentially disrupting the whatever the trade exists between the two countries, which is of hundreds of billions of the US dollar. So I think my understanding is that the Donald Trump probably is going to delay it, if not approve the release of the sale of these weapons. So this is a clear message. Now, in that context, let's see the Middle East. Why it is in the interest of the Chinese and also Russians to see a protracted war in the Middle East. The more the more Americans are embroiled in the Middle East, that means the power of the Americans, the military power, the geostrategic influence, the economic clout in the world, that is going to diminish in a very gradual manner. More particularly in the Middle East, because all these Gulf states, they've been largely transacting in the US dollars when it comes to selling, exporting their petrol, their other fuel products. So, and already Saudi Arabia and the Kuwait, they have diversified that currency. So this is going to be a bigger challenge in years to come. So Americans essentially want this war to be a prolonged one. So the Americans are drawn out, and that is why there are credible reports coming in the American media suggesting that the China has smuggled in the weapons. And now, part of the reason that the US blocked the Strait of the Hormuz from the Gulf of Oman was that essentially Americans were trying to block the delivery of those weapons. But we know it certainly that it is the Caspian Sea also, which is also connected with Iran. So Iran has many means to get Chinese weapons and also from the Russian weapons, because Caspian Sea is obviously connected with Russia. Russia can smuggle in weapons, and China through Russia can smuggle those weapons. So that is why that there is no change of tone and the language of Iranians, and they are not ready to give Americans the kind of the concessions in the possible nuclear deal. They were ready in the first round of talks in Islamabad. Now they are talking about demonstrating their sovereignty over the Strait of the Hormuz. And Iranians know the more there is a blockage of the Strait of the Hormuz, that means it is going to cripple international economy, more particularly the Gulf, which is heavily rely upon selling the petrol.
Okay, so okay, Mr. Rana, sorry to interrupt you. Do you think that the President Trump, as you were saying, that I mean, Marco Rubio, we have heard in the media saying that we don't need Chinese, to open up straight. But do you think that since the Iranians, they are putting many conditions, especially the condition of, toll, the ships that are going to go through the strait, whether coming inside or moving out, they are saying that we are going to, get the taxes or a certain amount. So do you think that the Chinese might have given a kind of a, note to the Americans? And as the American president was saying that the Chinese are agreeing that there should not be a nuclear weapon with China, as well as there should not be any,
with Iran
charges. Yes, with Iran and charges on the strait. So do you think that the Chinese might have given certain assurances or some kind of an, agreement to that?
I think the fear in Taiwan and fear in Tehran was that both of them may be on the menu table in Beijing. and the fear was that the Taiwan's issue would be compromised and the Iranian issues would be compromised, and China and the US may struck some kind of underhand deal, whereby China putting pressure on Iran to give concession to the Americans, and and at the same time, Americans are not coming up with any military help in any manner to Taiwan in the possible event of if China tries to take over the this Taiwan island. So that apprehension does exist that this could be part of any possible underhand deal. But my understanding is that the Chinese play a very long drawn game in a very slow manner. Iran is important for China, but not very important. For China, it is the Taiwan, because if you look at the Asia Pacific, the Southeast Asian countries, uh, essentially the Americans have the military bases on many islands and in some of the South Asian countries. That is a bigger apprehensions of China. China doesn't want American military presence in the state of Malacca in the Asian Pacific, and then the Americans, we know it, have some kind of a loose alliance, some kind of a political, and which is also perceived to be a military alliance with Korea, with Japan, with Australia, with Britain. They're all there, and then with India. So I think China is a very much conscious, very much particular about it. And in that context, China has now made it clear that Taiwan is our red line. China's trade, China's economic relation with Americans, that depends on what kind of Washington relation has with the Taiwan. So I think this is something new where China is showing its teeth now to the Americans, flexing its political muscles, and I would say rather flexing its also military muscles. This is something new. So I think in that broader context, I don't expect that the China in any manner are going to provide any concession to the Americans on Iranian issue unless there is some kind of behind the scene understanding.
What about the trade? Because that was one of the biggest issues, as the American president were carrying almost 17 CEOs of the world biggest companies, and it is estimated that around $10 trillion worth those companies do have in America, around the world. So what was the message? The message was that America wants to have a cordial business relation and partnership instead of rivalry with the Chinese.
I think the message was that the China is willing to have trade and to expand economic ties with Washington, provided Washington gives up its support to Taiwan, because now there is a lot of apprehensions in the South Eastern countries that the Taiwan is going to be the next target, because it does serve Chinese interest that if the Americans are exhausted out in any possible war, then the Americans would not be in a position in the Asia Pacific to do anything in the South.
Do you think that the Chinese would launch a kind of a war? Because we have seen the pattern of Chinese policies for decades, that they do talk of peace, stability, trade, business linkages. They don't talk of bombs, missiles, and attacking the other country. So I don't. What's your opinion? I think that they will never attack Taiwan because they have taken up the Singapore, and still they have their own currency. They have their own setup, everything. But the patronages of the China, almost 25 years have gone.
I think we have to see in the broader picture. The broader picture is Taiwan was part of China. As a result of a civil war, it was separated. 4 or 5 decades ago. So I think when it comes to Taiwan, there is an exceptionalism. When it comes to the rest of the world, yes, you are right. China has a policy. China does not militarily intervene. China considers Taiwan it's an internal issue, and anyone poking its nose onto Taiwan's affair is something that is a red line for the Chinese. So this is an exception, and China has publicly said time and again that it would use military force against Taiwan if it does not listen to it, if there is no peaceful reunion. And right now there are parallel two policies. One policy is that the China has militarily has encircled Taiwan. Their warships are in the state of Malacca, and that is a, I mean, every next day China has been militarily threatening Taiwan. And the other policy is to have a peaceful reunion, and that was part of the reason that the Taiwan's opposition leader was in China just a couple of weeks ago. But again, that is something easier said than done, because the current government in Taiwan is a very anti-China, and it's a pro-West. And the West has also problem, more particularly the Americans, that that much of the rare earth material, which involves the manufacturing of the semiconductors, that is imported from Taiwan, about to 70-90%. Rather, the entire world depends on that material. Much of the world depends on that material.
But they do talk about the Chinese, which produces 44 million metric tons. This the rare earth minerals which the Americans have been asking for.
I think again the rare earth minerals are a very broad terminology, but I was talking about specifically to the computer chips and other related items. So the broader context is, and then China somewhat, I'm using this word somewhat, not like Taiwan, is also particular about Pakistan, because the way China help Pakistan militarily, though the Chinese Republican Army wasn't there in Pakistan, but in terms of supplies of the military weapons, in terms of satellite intelligence, in terms of everything short of sending their military troops, the way China helped Pakistan, China did not help any other country. Even in case of Iran, the Chinese help is there, in terms of satellite intelligence, in terms of providing jamming technology, in terms of providing weapons, but not at a level it did in case of Pakistan, because Pakistan is important partly in the event of a China's war with Americans in the state of Malacca. Then this RCPAC, the Arabian Sea, Gwadar port would serve as an alternative trade and military route for the supplies. That is a part of the reason. But another part of the reason is that China does not feel comfortable with India, and Pakistan is a counterweight. So, and after Taiwan, Pakistan is more important for China for the strategic reasons. But
that's why the president, the prime minister, also visiting maybe in a week's time to China.
Yes, Pakistan's prime minister, president, foreign ministers, I think they have been back and forth visits to the China, and we know it. There is the reason is that we have very deep-seated, embedded economic ties with the China, and military ties are very strong. Our 70-75% military hardwares now they are imported from China, and I think that is something which is well known to everybody.
Thank you very much, Javed Rana, the senior journalist. You have given your perspective on the visit of President Trump to the China and the Chinese global, outreach and outlook, especially in the Middle East as well as with the relations with Pakistan. Thank you very much for joining. Thank you.